I want to thank everybody for coming to today's Zoom class on how to start a nonprofit and how to fund it. As people come in, we're going to be putting you on mute. Every day, somewhere in our community, in our cities, in our state, people are experiencing pain. And that pain can be in anywhere from unemployment, health issues, mental health issues, violence, poverty, and the list goes on and on. So much pain that's going on out there. Some people, when they see this going on, will look at it and will not act upon it. Other people, these individuals, I call them change makers, they create nonprofits. And they create these nonprofits because they see a problem that's not being addressed. And they create that nonprofit to address that problem. That's how we solve our problems in society. We don't talk about the problem. We actually create organizations to solve the problem. From police brutality, black-on-black killing. Right now, if you turn on your TV, there are so many things that's going on, from the pandemic to the killing of Mr. Ford by the police department, to people who are without food, to seniors that have problems, to youth that have problems, to families that have problems, and the list goes on and on and on. That's why we created this workshop. We created this workshop to create what we call next generation nonprofit in terms of your thinking. And today we're going to talk about a lot of ideas, critical thinking, that nonprofits need to be able to have in that toolbox in order to make a difference in society. So many times when you're a nonprofit and you're going against a big nonprofit, they have these tools in their chest, and that's why they're able to get funding. It can be anywhere from a theory of change, a logic model, a business plan, or a strategic plan. So today's class, we're going to be talking about all that. At the end of the day, we want to create next generation nonprofits that not only understand best practices, but they also understand how to seek out and get sustainable funding for that nonprofit. So give me a second. I'm hitting the button for the slide to move to the next slide, but it's taking its own time. Our mission. We strengthen organizations that strengthen communities. Here's a list of the different services that we provide. As you can see in red, we help organizations to prepare grants as well as teaching them how to do a grant, professional business plan proposal, preparation, government procurement, organizational development, sustainability, and capacity building strategy. This is probably very important if your organization is going to compete against an organization that's been around a long time. And then what we do is 501c3 preparation. Again, what we do is not only to work with nonprofits to create the legal establishment of a nonprofit, but more importantly, we mold them on how to do next generation approaches to sustaining that nonprofit. My name is Michael Randolph, and I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm originally from the Sandtown, Winchester community of Baltimore. In Baltimore, we, at that point in Baltimore, when I got started, Baltimore was the worst of the worst. Guess what? It still is the worst of the worst. But what happened during that time was there was an attempt to bring in experts from around the country to show communities how to empower themselves. And like so many times, these entities will come, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, you name it. They was there in Sandtown at the time. University of Maryland, all of these different institutions, banks, you name it. But what they did when they came, they talked about programs, but most of the time is what happened is that when they left, the community was basically in the same situation as it was before they came. And that goes from anywhere from the New Deal to model cities to the empowerment zone and beyond. So many programs come in to a community to help that community, but yet they leave without even solving the problem. So having learned all this from so many different people that was coming to talk about how to change communities, and from attending so many different workshops from around the country, I decided that I'm going to start a company. And that company is going to show poor communities how to empower themselves. And one of the most important tools to empower yourself is to become an organization. So let's talk a little bit about the organization. With the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development, we are a 501c3 organization created in 2007. However, we actually started in 2007. In 2011 is when we incorporated. We specialize in developing neighborhood plans and economic development initiatives in poverty-stricken communities. Our approach to sustainability is framed around social entrepreneur business model. Again, this is, when we talk about this model, this is part of what I talked about new generation thinking. We focus on creating national models and best practices. To date, we've provided technical assistance to over 1,800 nonprofits, government agencies, faith-based groups, businesses, and individuals. Most of the technical assistance has been through free professional workshops like this. We have worked with over 300 nonprofits and preparing their paperwork in order for them to start to be a 501c3 corporation. Right now, we have worked with nonprofits in 10 different states and starting their nonprofit, from California to Florida. To date, we have been successful in being a part of over $75 million in grants awarded. That is the number of grants I have been a partner with in helping to put together grants. When you look at the total number, that's $75 million. That's how long I've been around and taking part in grant writing in one capacity or another. We have received over 10,000 recommendations on our services from folks that's on LinkedIn. And ask that you go to that site and say, who's recommending us? And what you'll find is that people from all over the country. This talks a little bit more about our accomplishments, but I want to email you this presentation, and then at your leisure, you can just go through this and see some of the things that we've been a part of. 501c3. Our learning objectives today. By the end of this session, you should have a basic understanding of what is a nonprofit, what are bylaws, what's a purpose statement, what are articles of incorporation, what are conflict of interest policies, what is a solicitation requirements, and what is a 1023 application, and what is state exemption. So a nonprofit is an organization that serves a public interest. There are over 29 different types of 501c. The type we teach is 501c3 because a 501c3 is able to get, people who get to a 501c3 is able to make tax deductions on their contribution. And most funders will not fund you. For example, corporations and foundations that fund people, they will not fund you if you're not a 501c3. The first thought that you should give when you start your nonprofit is to identify what is your purpose. Why are you doing what you do? The purpose becomes the understanding of what you're trying to change. Let's give an example. Right now, in the streets of Baltimore, Tampa, throughout the United States, black-on-black killing is hitting a point that is, to say the least, sad, and it hurts. Mothers, for example, that experience this, create a nonprofit. And the reason why they create those nonprofits, because their purpose becomes so no other black child would die in the streets by another black. So that becomes the purpose of why you do what you do. In that particular example. Bylaws. When you start a nonprofit, you definitely want to create the laws to your organization. And that's be done by way of bylaws. If you drop the by, you have what's known as laws. Let's talk about the different components of bylaws. The first is the description of your board of directors. The second is qualification. And you create your own qualification. The third item is the number of directors. You can have anywhere from 3 and up. And the reason why you want to always have odd numbers is that you want to always be able to break a tie. You don't want to have a situation where you got even board members and then everybody comes down on one side and you never get anything done. But you also want to be able to manage that board of directors. So you don't want to have 15, 20 board members. Then the next thing, you need to talk about terms of directors. How long does a board member serve before that person is re-elected again? In most nonprofits, you can say every 4 years. And if the person is doing a good job, the person normally is elected back again and again and again. The next thing is resignation. You have something set up formally when a person resigns from the organization. So that what should happen is that board members submit a letter to the board, letting the board that they no longer desire to serve on the board. removal of board members. Let's give a scenario why this is important. Let's say you had a board member that cursed board members out. You had a board member that comes drunk all the time to board meetings. And you try to remove that person, and that person sues you. And you go to court, and the judge say, in a lot of cases, this man right here, you can't remove him from your board. In order to remove him from your board, see, you have to have it as part of your bylaws. You have to have what's known as a removal clause. And that clause might say that any board member can be removed if 3/4 of the board so deem it. Something like that. The next thing I want to talk about is annual report. An annual report should be done at the near the end of the fiscal year of that organization, the end of that organization, end of the year. If it's 12 months, it's calendar. If it's fiscal, it's something else. But at the end of that cycle, that last month, you should have an annual meeting to talk about what did we do and what didn't we do, and what do we need to do next year to make it better. You should have regular board meetings. For example, some board meetings are every month, and even if it's every month, you have to designate a specific date and a specific time. So your regular meeting might be every third Wednesday at 7 p.m. That's designate, because it becomes part of your law. So if a board member doesn't come to a board meeting, you can always use that as the agreed upon date and time. Then, if during that cycle of your regular meeting passed, and you need to have a meeting, you can always have what's known as a special meeting at any time. You want to also have officers that's part of your nonprofit. They can be anywhere from the president, chairperson, treasurer, secretary, and on and on. Committees. You want to have committees that report to the board. Let's say you had a youth organization, and the committees might be a health committee, another might be an employment committee, and another might be a activity committee. What we're trying to stress is that these committees report back to the board every month on what's going on in the different activities that the board of directors oversees. You want to designate an appointed person to make public statements on behalf of your organization. You don't want to get in a situation where everybody, if something should happen in your nonprofit and you got reporters out there, you want to make sure there's always a designated person. That can be the CEO or any other person that you designate in the organization. Identification. Identification is a clause that says that everybody should sue the board of directors, that the individual board members cannot be sued, and that only the corporation can be sued. And this works to protect board members unless the thing that you overlooked was so egregious that it makes you as individual board members liable for the mishap that's being caused. In this case, let's say, for example, you hire a person that's a child molester, and that person molests a child because you got a youth program, and you need that person well. Well, now the person could come after the board and also the individual board members. But only in that type of situation in which the board knew something was going on and looked the other way, that's when the board can be subjected to being sued. Articles of incorporation is the first document that you file to become legal. In order to get your 501c3 status, you must have first file with the state your articles of incorporation. And this is simply a formal document that makes your organization legal. Let's talk about the different components of your articles of incorporation. You got the name. That's the first thing you want to do. Now, keep in mind that you want to Google the name because you want to make sure that nobody in the nation, nobody in the world has that name. Then you want to talk about duration. Your duration clause to say that the nonprofit will be perpetual. It will continue on forever. Then you want to have your purpose statement. And this purpose statement is when you talk about why you're doing what you do as a nonprofit. And of course, you want to put in that the benefit is the public. So you put your public benefit statement. Your nonprofit nature is where you put in your 501c3 status. You also want to have a clause in your articles that talks about personal liability to the fact that it goes something like this, that no board member shall be liable for any debt of the corporation. And in the day is a good example. With the violence that has taken place, a lot of nonprofits have closed down. However, they owe a lot of bills because that computer that you got, you still need to pay that. The papers, your supplies and things of that nature that you purchased, you still have to pay that back. So people can come after the corporation. Although the likelihood of that happening in this pandemic is not likely. But anyway, I'm using it as an example. So if they did decide to pursue it, you protect yourself by saying, well, any debt that the corporation has caused to happen is not the board members individually the responsibility. You protect your board members that way. Then the next thing is dissolution. This is where you want to have a conversation about breaking what's going to happen when the board dissolves itself, dissolution. And this is where you say that when we do end, if we do end, we're going to give everything, all of our assets, to another nonprofit, a church, or the government. The next clause is this I'm going to prohibited distribution. And this is where you say that you're going to do everything according to the IRS laws. Conflict of interest. A conflict of interest can come into play if a board member gets something of value for serving on the board. The only board member that should be paid is the CEO, president. And that's because that person runs the day-to-day operation for that operation, for that nonprofit. So the CEO does get paid. No board member can get a value for serving on the board. Let me give you an example of something that really happened. So you got your board, and one of the people on your board are doing windows. And you're doing you got a nonprofit, and you're doing affordable homes. And that board member say, hey, guess what? Y'all can hire me. I'm going to give you good prices because I'm sitting on the board to do that particular job. That's a conflict of interest because that board member gets a benefit from serving on that board of directors. Then you want to get your EIN number. What's important about your EIN number is that you go online and you get it. This becomes your corporate number. In order to get it, you have to key in your Social Security number. And the reason why you're doing that is to make sure, the reason why you're doing that is because IRS wants to make sure that you are a United States citizen. Once you keep in your Social Security number, that drops, and then you go to the application to complete to get your EIN number for your corporation. 501c3 application. In order to get your status as a 501c3, you have to file what's known as Form 10 23. And we talked about earlier all the things that you need to have that you should have in place before we get here. You should have your purpose, your bylaws, your articles of incorporation, and your EIN number. Now you're ready to complete Form 1023. Now, normally it takes 3 weeks turnaround time when you file what they call the streamlined version. You can have your nonprofit established within 3 weeks after filing that application. Once you get that application and you become a 501c3, then you have to go to the state and request that the state give you exemption from paying sales tax. Only the state can give you exemption from paying sales tax. So that means if you go to buy a computer, normally it's an 8% sales tax or something like that, or that's attached to the cost of the item itself. With a state exemption, they can only charge you for the price of that item and not any taxes. Every nonprofit must register with their state in order to operate. In other words, you must be licensed in that state in order to do a nonprofit. You cannot solicit donations or grants unless the state gives you that license. Some people think that you have your 501c3 status, and that gives you permission to open up your business and collect money. Well, if you're going to collect money or anything else, you still have to have a license to operate that business, and it's called a 10-100. In other states, it might be something different. Now, so we understand how to prepare the legal paperwork to become a nonprofit. Now, let's talk about how do you fund the nonprofit. So this first part of the class is going to focus on, this part of the class is going to focus on how do we get money in order to fund the nonprofit. By the end of the session, you should be able to describe the different types of grants, describe the different types of grantors, identify research tools available to the grant seeker, describe the fundamentals of grant writing, describe the proposal writing process, describe concepts, letters of intent, and you should start to think about your next steps. Let's talk about what are the different types of grants. You have an unrestricted grant. This type of grant goes to general support for general purposes of that organization. These grants are far and few. Most grants are called restricted. That means you receive that grant because the person that's giving you that money is giving you that money for a particular purpose. So let's say you have, under the restricted grant, you start a program for teen pregnancy. And your focus is on preventing teenagers from getting pregnant. And that's what you're getting money for. But you decided that you was also going to add on grandmothers to your program, males to your program. That's a problem because your focus is only on teen pregnancy. Now, while these people might be part of that program, you can't use those numbers when you report back to what you did. You can only report those numbers related to those teens that are pregnant, the very thing you're trying to solve. The other thing, a type of restricted grant, is seed money. Seed money is what you go for in order to normally bring on your first employee. In this case, your first employee is going to be the CEO, president. So you go for a grant, and you say, no, we want to go for a grant. We're going for this grant because we want to build capacity for our nonprofit. We knew we're just getting started. And we want to bring on our first employee, who is going to be the CEO, president, to come on board and take us to the next level. So that would be a grant from 12 to 18 months, because basically what you're saying is that when that time is up, that CEO should be able to bring in sustainable funding for you to continue your operation. Then you can get what's known as a capital grant. And a capital grant is if you want to buy a piece of property, or if you're going to buy land. One scenario will be if you're going to do affordable housing. You're buying a piece of land, you're going to build houses, and then sell them to you're going to sell them to families who need affordable housing. Or you might do transitional housing. You might buy the land and do transitional housing for people that's coming out the system. Whatever the case, seed capital grants go to facilitate that. Or you can do what's known as endowments. And endowments are normally to colleges and universities. But I listed here only to give the whole array of different types of grants. Challenge grants, that comes up a lot lately. So what that means is that, let's say, for example, you go to grant and you're asking the grantor for $100,000, and the grantor say to you, we'll give you $80,000, but you have to come up with the remaining $20,000. That's not hard, because one of the things you're going to learn in this class is to understand where do you go at to find out who's giving the money, who's giving the money out. That's over 10,000 foundations and corporations that give money out every year. So we're going to talk about how do we find them later on in the presentation. And then finally, in-kind support. That's anybody that's going to do volunteer work for your organization. Types of grantors. You have your individual grantor, like you and I. And an example of that is when we buy Girl Scout cookies and we make that donation. That's an individual donation. Or a lot of times, if you are in church and before you leave, that pastor tell you about those tithes. Don't leave church. That's a donation. That's a form of a donation. That's why individuals by far give out the most money, and it's the best source of funding for of people to give money. The next type is called a family foundation. And a family foundation is like Bill Gates or the Obama Foundation or the Clinton Foundation. These foundations are people that are biologically connected to each other. And then you have what's known as a community foundation. Community foundations are foundations that give money in a specific community, like the Hillsborough County Children's Board, like Baltimore Foundation. So they give money in a specific location. Then you have corporate foundations. Corporate foundations are organizations, or corporate foundations are corporate businesses that we see all the time, like Target, Best Buy, Walgreens, Walmart, and on and on and on. BT. What you might not know is that by law, these corporations, in order to maintain their status, must give up to 5% of their net proceeds to 501c3 corporations. That's why it's important that you become a 501c3. And the reason why these corporations give money, quite candidly, is not because they try to not pay taxes. They don't pay taxes. They have their accountants and lawyers to make sure they pay virtually little or no taxes. They do it, and they give because of the corporate image. To show that, hey, look, we not only make money on this side, but we also give back to community. Then you have what's known as corporate federated funds, like the United Way. And then finally, you have what's known as government funds. I want you to look at the advantages and the disadvantages when I say in this presentation, and make a choice as to is it worth going after any particular pot of money. Now, how do we now find the money to do what we want to do? Well, there's two tools that I use, although you can see in blue under research tools to find the grant, it's more than two. But the one I haven't read is because those are the ones I really like. The first is the Foundation Center. With the Foundation Center, this is where they're a clearinghouse. They have over 10,000 foundations and corporations that give money. It's important that you connect to this foundation because a lot of times when you're trying to get money and you're trying to Google it, those foundations are not going to come up. Now, if you go to the Foundation Center, they will come up. So what you do is to start to key in the subject. Let's say at-risk youth. Then you key in the location, Tampa, Florida. Then you key in the amount of money that you want or more. So in this case, when you put in amount of money, you put in $100 million. You put in $100,000. So when you hit the inquiry button, what comes back is everybody from around the world that's giving money for at-risk youth in the Tampa Bay area, because that's where you're located, and for $100,000 or more. You could have said for $50,000. But you decided to say, look, I want to look at everybody that's giving $100,000, and then I'll come down. You could have very well put in everybody that's giving $1 million or more, so you can determine what that number look like. And then what you do, when those numbers come up, when that list comes up, you go to the first five. You submit a proposal to them. You don't get it. And then you go to the next five until eventually you get a hit. The next thing is grants.gov. And grants.gov, and by the way, the Foundation Center, they do charge $100 and something a month. You can access the Foundation Center at your local library, your main branch, for free of charge. That way you can go on that to the library, access Foundation Center for free, put in for your first grant that might be for your CEO. Your grant might also be to have a space where you can, house your office. Now, once you start your nonprofit, the next year you want to actually get a subscription to the Foundation Center, because now you can write a grant to get a year subscription for the Foundation Center to continue on your search for grants. Then we have what's known as grants.gov. And grants.gov is if you're going for any federal grant. There is 4 ways to increase your opportunity to be competitive in writing grants. First, make sure you read the application form and the guidelines. Second, talk to somebody that received that grant last year. Next, talk to someone that was part of the group that awarded that grant. And talk to the person who is the program officer or contact person. Because every grant that goes out has a contact person you can call to get more information. So let's say, for example, you were going to try to get that grant from Bank of America. When you go to the Foundation Center and put in Bank of America, you're going to put in funding by Bank of America for 2019. That way you're going to get a gauge at who received that money last year. And then you're going to engage with them, talk with them, get some ideas from them in order to increase your chances of getting your grant. It works. When you use this strategy, 86% of the time, you're going to get that grant. So once you identify where the money is, now you're going to start the grant process. the first thing you have to address and start in the grant process is the problem. The problem is sometimes called problem statement or need assessment. Your problem statement talks about the specific conditions that you want to change. For example, it might be that mother who lost her son to gun violence. This becomes part of a problem statement on what she wants to change. Part of the problem statement should include why is it important? How significant is the problem? What would happen if nothing is done about the problem? How can the problem be solved? So all these things become part of the statement of the problem. There are two ways that you collect the data necessary to show the research related to the problem. One is called quantitative research. Quantitative research is the numbers, the how many. The quantitative research also goes to the why, studies that's been done. Let's look at the quantitative research related to the numbers side of the table. So let's say, for example, you've identified your problem that you want to solve is young black males that's being killed by other black males. When you do your research, you're going to type in, for example, black males killed by black males in Baltimore, in Tampa in 2019. And you're going to use it as your base when you start to write that grant. Well, based on numbers that we got from the Tampa Police Department or the Baltimore City Police Department, we found that 900 people, for example, and I'm exaggerating in some cases, 900 people were killed as a result of black-on-black crime. So now you got the numbers. Then you're going to show the studies. You're going to key into Google. You're going to put in, why are blacks more likely to kill each other? And then there's going to be all kinds of studies that address that issue that you're going to make part of your grant proposal. The next part of research is called qualitative research. And qualitative research is that research that you are going to, the research that you're trying to collect related to subjective feelings. Those type of qualitative research tools can they be anywhere from focus groups, interviews, questionnaires, and surveys. In the case of a focus group, let's say you brought together 5 young black men, took them to McDonald's, and you begun to ask them questions like, why is the violence so bad in our neighborhood? What can we do to solve that problem? Or a host of other questions that you can give to them. Now, when you write that grant, you're going to start off with your quantitative research. You're going to show the how many related to the problem. Then you're going to talk about the studies that's been done to show why the problem is a problem. And then you're going to show the quantitative research related to the problem, in which you're going to say, on a certain date, we met with 5 young at-risk men, and they shared with us their view on why they think black-on-black killing is a problem, and they shared with us how to solve that problem. Now that you have identified the problem, now the next thing is to create the program or the project that you want to establish. We call it the solution. You start off by identifying your goal. And the goal is really about the final impact or outcome that you wish to bring about. In the case of black-on-black killing, we would phrase it like this in a goal: to reduce the number of black-on-black killing. That would be the goal from the problem. Once we identify the goal, now we have to talk about the objectives, the steps we're going to take in order to reach the goal. The objective can be, for example, a mentor program with at-risk youth, an after-school program with at-risk youth, a job placement program for at-risk youth. It can be any of those different types of objectives. You have different types of objectives, and you can read this at your leisure. Anywhere from behavioral objectives, performance objectives, process objectives, and product objectives. Read that at your leisure. Now that we identified the goals and objectives, now comes the work of writing and putting together the program. This is called the method section, or sometimes people call it program design. The method section describes your project activities in detail, indicating how your goals will be accomplished. It should include the following: how you plan to accomplish your goal, your objective. It should talk about your personnel needs, your staffing requirements, job description. It should talk about the facilities you're going to need. How much does it cost? It should talk about the equipment and materials you're going to need. It should talk about how you're going to administer the program. It should talk about your scope of activity. Some people call scope of services. It should talk about the target population that you plan to help. And, for example, at-risk youth in this scenario. The other thing is that you have to give a chronological order of how things occur from the first day that you open your door to the last day. So for the first 30 to 45 days should be your bringing on staff, even though you know what staff you're going to bring on in some cases for your program. So you're going to bring on staff, meaning that you're going to put it in a newspaper, you're going to put it out there in the public to let people know you're looking for people in order to staff your program. You're going to do your interviews, decide who they are. Next is from anywhere from day 45 on up to day 60, it should start to recruit. If you're dealing with at-risk youth, you're putting information in the newspaper, social media, to let young people know about your program. And then you're going to actually get your program started after that. That's when you really clockwork starts, when you start to begin to run your program. The first part of the grant is the introduction. When you're writing for a corporate grant or foundation grant. Not so much when you're writing for a government grant. In the introduction, you want to talk about credibility related to your organization. You should talk about your board members. What do they bring to the table? What background do they have? And how that background helps you to move forward with your mission, with your vision. Those should be part of that part of the document. Also, this is where you should be talking about who you want to partner with in order to make it a conclusion. Normally in the grant, you shouldn't talk about or get personal. The only part of a grant that you can start to get emotional is in the conclusion. Is the conclusion. So if you're that mother that's starting a nonprofit because you lost a child in the streets to violence by another black person, another African American, then you can begin to talk about why here. You can start out by, for example, the reason why we are doing what we do, and you're going to share your story. That's going to be a big plus when you're going for a grant. People want to know about that personal story as to what makes you start this nonprofit and how personal is it. The next thing you want to do is to get that information out there, the simulation of the information, getting that information out there. And what's important about this, because being a newsletter, website, pamphlet, press release, it's critical that you acknowledge people that gave you the money. Because remember, people give you money because they want that recognition. So somewhere in your literature, media, electronic, or physical media, pamphlets, electronic, websites, social media, make sure you say funded by. For example, if it's funded by the Bank of America, funded by the Bank of America. Okay, your appendix, which is the last part of the grant. This is where you put in any articles about your organization, any recent articles, list of board members, recent annual reports, organizational physical reports, past success stories, and letters of support. Letters of support are important because that goes to show that other people support what you're doing. In the case of the mother that wants to start a nonprofit because her child was killed through black-on-black killing, she can get letter support from churches, from the police department, Department of Corrections, other nonprofits, other mothers that has lost that child due to the sentence of killing. As much as possible, make sure you get in the news media as much as possible. Do an event every month to make sure you have a track record. Because a lot of times what funders do now, they look to see your track record. What have you done? And you do, a newspaper will publish your rent free of charge because you're in the rent, because you're a nonprofit. Also make sure you have a social media presence, that you're constantly putting in content about what you're doing. Pictures and video, you want to definitely do that. You want to tell your story. Appearance is very important. If you don't follow the guidelines, and we talked about that earlier about being one of the components of a strong grant proposal, if you don't follow the guidelines, then you can lose that grant. So if the grantor asks that you submit a proposal and number it, and you don't, you got a problem. If the grantor who's going to provide you with the money say that they want you to do Time Roman 12 font, and you did Kersey 13 font, you're not going to get that grant. So in other words, make sure you follow to the letter what they ask you for. Evaluation. Well, now that you got, and let's look at everything we talked about. Now that you identify your problem, you identify the goals and your objectives, you identify your method sections, you identify your work plan, you identify how you're going to actually run out the program and your method section. Now that you got all that together, the next question is, how are you going to know when you are successful? That's why it's imperative that you have evaluation. Let's talk about the different types of evaluation. One is a goal-based evaluation. The other is a process-based evaluation. And then you have what's known as your outcome-based evaluation. Let's explore each of those types of evaluation individually. The first type is your goal-based evaluation. Your goal-based evaluation is when you're evaluating whether or not your goals and your objectives are consistent with the activities or the process that you actually are doing. So if you are a organization that's looking at stopping youth violence, and your goal is to reduce the number of youth that's committing violence, and your objectives are to do A, B, C, and D, but yet your activities, the things that you're actually doing, is senior citizens jump rope. It has to be consistent with your goals and your objectives. That's what we call goal-based evaluation. And you'll be surprised at the number of nonprofits that start out with goals and objectives, and they go all the way left-handed. The next type of evaluation is called an outcome evaluation. Outcome evaluation. In most outcome evaluations, people use what's known as logic models. In a logic model, just simply breaks down the different components of your plan. The first component is called the resource. In the resource section, this is when you talk about what you need. You talk about the staff you're going to need. You talk about the equipment, the material. You talk about the lease of property, a space you're going to need, and on and on and on. The next section talks about activities. Let's talk about the case in terms of the mentor program for the at-risk youth who is subjected to or susceptible to the black-on-black killing in our community. So an activity will be, based on that, will be a mentor program that you're using in order to get young people to think differently about killing themselves. That will be the activity. One of your activities will be a mentor. The next thing as part of the logic model is the output. The output is how many. For example, you could say, well, we plan to help 100 young at-risk youth. Be very careful that you don't talk about doing things and serving a large number of people in your outcomes that you can't serve. For example, if you say, we're going to service 1,000 young people in our first year, but yet you don't really have the staff to do that. So be realistic in your output, because your outputs become the number of people that you want to serve. And at the end of your program, people are going to hold you to that. That's going to determine your success also. The next thing you want to do is to talk about your outcomes. And your outcomes talk about the benefit that that person got from your program. So in your mentor program, in your activity section, which is a in your activity section, which is a mentor program, you're saying the outcome of that young person from coming from out of your mentor program, the outcome is going to be that young person is going to be able to think more positive. And that young person is going to have the tools for success as part of the outcome. You have actually transformed that young person from thinking about wanting to hurt each other to really want to be a productive member of their society. That's the outcome from your mentor program. Your outcomes have to lead to your impact. Your impact is really all the way down the road. It might be 5 or 7 years. So as a result of your outcome and helping that young person in your mentor program, the outcome is that now that young person is not going to be part of the criminal justice system. The person is going to be a productive member of society, going to have a good job, going to be a homeowner. They're going to have all of those positive attributes that we are trying to aim for in terms of changing that at-risk youth to a youth that it's a successful use and not killing each other. The next component or the next evaluation tool is called a theory of change. Let's go back just one step. We talked about 3 types of evaluation tools. We talked about the goal/objective evaluation. We just finished the outcome evaluation using the logic model. Now we're moving to the next type of evaluation. It's called a theory of change. The theory of change is a process evaluation in which you begin to talk about the process through which you plan to bring about the change. So you start with your problem, the scope of the problem, how significant it is. You talk about your outcome and your impact, and then in your interventions section, this is when you begin to talk about the process. For example, you say, our mentor program is a 6-month program in which young people attend weekly classes, 2 hours per class, and the following materials is used in terms of being part of the part of the change, the process that's being used to transform these people, these individuals. So again, the process. How do you plan to do it? How often are they attending? What materials are you using? How often do they attend? How many hours? And what period of time? 6 months, 8 months. All of this is in your theory of change. The organization. Now you need to talk about choosing the organization and why you are in or you will be in the capacity to manage the organization and manage the funding. Organizational capacity. This deals with the why, the who, the what, the how, and the how much. Why does your organization exist? Who are you? What program and activities do you propose to do to solve the problem? How will you implement these programs? Then you want to talk about how much money you need. Then you need to get to organizational infrastructure. If you do not have organizational infrastructure, then the likelihood of you competing with other people that's going for money and you receiving their money, and especially as any sustainable money, is slim. So your own organizational infrastructure includes your policies and your procedures, your staffing description, your funding sustainability. And we're going to talk about funding sustainability a little bit more in the presentation. Your physical control. How do you manage your money? What are you making sure you got safe protocols in there to make sure people are not doing things with the money other than what the money was intended for? You want to have a 5-year plan, a 5-year strategic plan. This is when you begin to talk about your goals, your strategies, your objectives, your tactics, your operation, your methods, and your budget. You also want to have what's known as a SWOT analysis. This is mostly your Fortune 500 corporations use to make sure that they are always at that top game, because they're constantly looking at what are our strengths, our weaknesses, what's the threat, and what's the opportunity. You're doing this because you're saying it's a nonprofit, even though your status is a 501c3, you're thinking like a business. You're using a business model. And normally you don't create this type of matrix until you've been in operation maybe 2 or 3 years. Now you want to talk about the components that make you a strong organization, from your values. And your values go to what do you believe, your mission, why do you exist, your vision, Where are you going at? The strategy. How will you get there? And your tactics. What will we do in order to get there? I want to go back and look at the vision. The vision statement is always the futuristic way you want the world to look. Dr. King in his I Had a Dream speech talked about his vision through his I Had a Dream. That was his vision. So what he was saying is that when he looked in the world at that particular point, what he saw was all kind of segregation. He's saying people that couldn't eat if you were black in a restaurant. You couldn't use the same restaurant as the white person, and on and on. So his vision then was to create a world where a man is judged not by the color of his skin, but by the content of his characteristics. Now, the other key components of being a strong business plan is a strong organization. You have to create a business plan, an operational plan, physical management, fundraising, safety and risk management strategy, marketing and planning and branding strategies, and partnerships and collaborations. This is what all of the strong non-profits that have been around forever have, and this is why they're getting the money. Now, your new generation nonprofits, you're going to be able to compete with those nonprofits because your position will be that these nonprofits have been around forever, but we're not seeing any change. Now, you're going to present your theory of change, how you can create change in your community. And you're going to be considered to be, what they say, you're going to be a game player. You're going to be part of the game. Funding. Let's talk about how do you sustain your program. What do you do to make sure that once the funding is finished, you still got money to continue on? Sustainability. There are several ways that you can increase your nonprofit. We're going to talk about a model called social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship is the ability to find the future of a nonprofit through a combination of earned income, charitable contributions, and public sector subsidies. The earned income is used to pursue social objectives by simultaneously seeking both financial and social return on your investment. Let's look at how do you bring in the revenue. This first section. Well, it's a couple ways. Traditionally, you're bringing in grants. But you need to understand, you need to move away from only bringing in grants. And you need to look at other channels of earned income. You need to diversify your streams of income. The next stream of income can be fee for service. The other can be development fees. For example, if you're doing affordable housing, you can be the developer and you can actually be the person that creates those houses and you can hire a general contractor to do it. But it becomes another way of bringing fees into your organization. You can also get consultant fees. Consultant fees is when people pay you in order to you to teach them how you've been able to do what you do. And trust me, they're gonna be, if your program works and it becomes the best practice, evidence-based type of program, people are gonna be calling you from around the nation, if not the world. Then the most important component is to own and operate your own business. Nonprofits need to move away from grants and sustainability, and you need to move more towards creating nonprofit businesses in which you generate your own income. An example of an organization that generates its own income, for the most part, and it's called the Girl Scouts. When you buy those cookies, that's business. That's how they get their money. Another example would be here in Tampa, they have Metropolitan Ministry, and I hope I'm pronouncing the right organization and giving them the right props. Anyway, They're a homeless organization. And what they did was to create a restaurant, downtown Tampa, that served gourmet food. And the restaurant was manned and operated by homeless people. So in such a way that, and this is the way they approach it, and this is the way nonprofit, you approach it like this. You have two restaurants. One restaurant serves gourmet food in its position. You have another restaurant that serves gourmet food, but the money that comes in when you have that good move goes to a social cause. So you become competitive with other for-profit business. Even when you're doing a T-shirt, CDC of Tampa, which is in Tampa, Florida. At one point, they had a couple types of business. One was a youth T-shirt shop. In which young people was hired to run a business to sell T-shirts. Then they had an ice cream shop, in which young people were hired to run an ice cream shop. So that goes to show of how do you, and that's part of creating what we call community wealth. When you're using the community wealth and you're creating those types of wealth that help to benefit your community. And then you want to use other types of strategy, including making investment in stocks, a long-term investment. So that means that if you're investing in stocks and bonds and other types of securities, you constantly get money coming back to your organization for sustainability based on the initial investment that you made. Again, it's another stream of income. And then you want a partnership directly with corporate America in order to do deals instead of going through an intermediate like the government or like another nonprofit. Put together deals that you can go directly to corporate America. And when you got a stereotype, when you got a business plan, when you got a strategic plan, when you got all those plans that we talk about, then corporate America will listen to you. Okay, then the monies that come in from revenue, you use it for your programs. Your programs can be employment services, public safety, youth programs, and a whole list of things under program project output. Then outcome is to increase the quality of life. And some of the things is that it's going to increase employment, increase affordable housing, reduction in crime, generally an increase in the quality of life. And the benefits, because you need to make this argument, is that the benefit to government is just to increase your tax base. Another benefit is that it's going to reduce the amount of service that's needed in the poor community. So the government begins to get a payback on what we're doing. A reduction in public safety because we're doing programs that create jobs as a way to get people to reduce the number of crimes. The other thing is you're able to reduce the risk for lenders. So when you talk to banks, you can talk about how your strategy actually reduces the risk in the communities that they're going to invest money to. Again, you have to be sophisticated when you want to really work these deals. Then you want to have a conversation with investors. And you want to talk to those investors about how, if you invest in your community, that you can create a higher return on that money because of all the positive things you're doing to transform that community or to transform a particular population of people. Then you want to do your budget. Your budget, direct costs is all those costs associated with people that are on the front line. If you're doing a youth program, it's a youth counselor, it's a secretary, it's all those people that are there to provide service for that at-risk program. Mentors, after-school teachers, the whole 9 yards. It's direct costs. You also have what's known as indirect costs. And indirect costs is the administrative cost, but it includes also the costs you need in order to operate. Like you need a lawyer, you need an accountant. So you need all those types of different things as part of indirect costs. And as you can see, we have a whole list of different things that is considered to be indirect costs. Okay, so then you can do cost sharing if you want to share the cost with another organization. And in-kind services, in-kind costs as well. So I'm hoping everybody that has taken this class today leave with a new generation of thinking. In our neighborhoods, throughout the country, people are setting up programs that only benefits those people that are coming into our community. And most times they're coming into our community because of some crisis that happened. And most of the programs that are supposed to be geared towards helping the right people that the programs is focused on, they do not help the people. That's why we're creating a new generation of nonprofits. Nonprofits that actually deliver outcomes that's significant and outcomes that transform lives. And they're able to fund their operation as an independent because the funds that are coming in makes them, and the funds makes them independent when it comes into bringing money in because they have different streams of income that's coming in. If you want to make a change in your neighborhood, be a nonprofit. Make a change. We cannot change what's going on in our neighborhoods, in our community, in our world, unless we create organizations that spearhead the changes in our community. So I'm hoping everybody really enjoyed this class today. We're going to have to end it now. You're going to get a copy of this presentation. In addition to this, you're going to get a copy of this recorded presentation as well. So go out there and change the neighborhood. Go out there and make a difference. Because at the end of the day, we all we got.